London, July 16, 1988. Wembley Stadium stood as a monument to music that summer evening, its massive structure cradling 72,000 souls who had gathered for what they already knew would be a historic night. Michael Jackson's Bad Tour had been selling out venues across the globe, his performances elevating concerts into near-religious experiences. The air was electric with anticipation as the crowd waited, their collective breath held, thousands of heartbeats synchronizing in the twilight. The enormous stage, flanked by towering light rigs and video screens, remained empty as fog machines released gentle clouds that floated across the performance space. Rumors had circulated for weeks. Whispers of a special guest, perhaps. London tabloids had speculated wildly, but Michael's team had maintained an impenetrable silence. The fans clutched their tickets, many having camped for days to secure their positions near the stage. Some held homemade signs. Others wore jackets adorned with buttons and patches chronicling their devotion to the king of pop. In the front rows, teenagers trembled with excitement, their faces painted with that single iconic sequin glove or lightning bolt. Farther back, families huddled together, parents who had grown up with the Jackson 5 now passing that musical inheritance to their children. The stadium lights dimmed suddenly, and the crowd erupted. 72,000 voices merging into a single deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundation of the venue. For 30 seconds, there was only darkness and sound, a primordial scene of communal anticipation. Then, a single spotlight pierced the blackness, illuminating a figure standing completely still at center stage. The silhouette was unmistakable, that lean frame, the hat tilted at a precise angle, one gloved hand raised to the heavens. Before a single note played, the audience was already on their feet, screaming, crying, reaching toward the stage as if proximity alone could bridge the gap between ordinary life and the transcendent experience that was a Michael Jackson concert. The opening notes of "Wanna Be Startin' Something" exploded from the sound system, and Michael burst into motion. His movements were otherworldly, each gesture precise, yet fluid, mechanical yet deeply human. The crowd watched in awe as he commanded the massive stage, his dancers forming constellations around him. The choreography so tight it seemed they shared a single nervous system. Song after song, Michael's performance intensity never wavered. Beat It saw him sliding across the stage in those iconic penny loafers, his voice soaring above the instrumental. During Human Nature, he seemed to float above the stage, his vulnerability and strength displayed in equal measure as his voice caressed the melody with heartbreaking tenderness. 2 hours into the performance, Michael paused to address the crowd. His speaking voice was softer than his singing voice, almost shy, which made the stadium fall into an unusual hush as fans strained to hear his words. "London," he said simply, and the crowd erupted again. He waited for the noise to subside, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "London," he repeated, "you make me feel so welcome, so loved." A pause as the audience roared their affirmation. "Tonight is special," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "Tonight, I want to share something with you that we've never done before. I want to invite someone to join me." The stadium buzzed with speculation, the collective energy shifting from adoration to curiosity. In that moment of anticipation, a figure emerged from stage left. The spotlight swung to reveal her, Madonna, dressed in a characteristically provocative outfit that somehow complemented Michael's more modest military-inspired jacket and slim black pants. The crowd gasped collectively, then erupted in a cacophony of disbelief and joy. These two titans of pop music, often portrayed by the media as rivals representing different approaches to artistry and fame, now stood mere feet apart on the same stage. Madonna strutted toward Michael with her trademark confidence, her blonde hair styled in loose curls, her eyes fixed challengingly on him. The body language between them was electric, a visual representation of the tension between their public personas. "Hello, Michael," she said, her voice amplified through her headset microphone. The crowd fell silent again, hanging on every word of this unexpected exchange. "I hear you, the king of pop." Her tone was playful, but carried an edge. The audience responded with nervous laughter. Michael's smile widened, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Those close enough to the stage could see a flash of something, competitiveness, perhaps, cross his usually guarded expression. "They call me that," he responded with uncharacteristic boldness, drawing excited screams from his fans. "What brings you to my stage, Madonna?" She circled him slowly, like a boxer sizing up an opponent. "I thought maybe we could settle something tonight. In front of all these people." She gestured to the massive crowd. "They say there can only be one greatest performer of our generation." The audience's reaction was immediate. Shouts, cheers, a palpable tension filling the enormous space. Madonna stopped directly in front of Michael, their profiles to the audience. "What do you say we let them decide? If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We bring you these intimate moments from Michael's extraordinary life because his legacy deserves to be remembered in all its emotional depth and power." Michael's response was not verbal, but physical. He took 3 precise steps backward, creating space between them, then removed his hat with a flourish and handed it to his stagehand. The crowd sensed something momentous was about to happen. Michael nodded to his band leader, who counted in a rhythm that was familiar yet different. The beginning of one of Michael's hits, but reimagined, restructured. As the music swelled, Madonna smiled in recognition and acceptance of the challenge. What followed was unprecedented, a dance-off between 2 of the most influential artists of the decade, each bringing their signature style to a spontaneous choreographic conversation. Michael moved first, his body becoming liquid music, his footwork impossibly fast yet crystal clear, each movement a declaration of his unparalleled physical control. His famous moonwalk across the stage drew screams of appreciation, his spins tight and precise. When he finished his sequence, he gestured to Madonna with an elegant sweep of his arm. "Your turn." Madonna responded with her own vocabulary of movement. More provocative, more street, but equally commanding. Where Michael was ethereal, she was earthy. Where he was technical precision, she was raw emotional power. The band transitioned seamlessly into one of Madonna's hits, rearranged to fit the energy of the moment. The 2 performers began to move simultaneously, no longer in competition, but in collaboration, their distinct styles weaving together in real-time choreography that seemed impossible without rehearsal. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the dance evolved, 2 artistic visions merging into something entirely new. Their bodies created negative space for each other. Madonna twirling into the area Michael had just vacated, Michael sliding into position just as Madonna moved elsewhere. It was a visual symphony, a physical dialogue between artists who spoke the same language with different accents. As the music shifted again, Michael's vocals joined the arrangement, his distinctive voice soaring above the instrumentation. The audience held its breath, wondering if Madonna would join him. For several measures, she continued to dance as he sang, their movement conversation continuing. Then, at a musical bridge, Madonna's voice entered, harmonizing with Michael's in a way no one had ever heard before. Their vocal timbres, his smooth, almost ethereal tenor, and her earthier, more direct tone, created something magical in the blend. Neither was singing the actual lyrics of their hits, but rather vocalized melodic lines that intertwined and responded to each other, as if their voices were having the same conversation their bodies had initiated. The stadium fell into a rare moment of complete silence. 72,000 people stood motionless, witnessing something they instinctively understood they would never see again. Some began to weep openly, overcome by the unexpected beauty of this collaboration. Others simply stared, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and joy. The silence was profound, almost sacred, a collective recognition of artistic transcendence. The duet built to a crescendo, both vocal and choreographic. Michael and Madonna, now moving in perfect synchronicity despite their different styles, their voices finding harmonic convergence despite their distinct tones. At the peak moment, they froze in a final pose, Michael's right hand and Madonna's left extended toward each other, not quite touching. The famous imagery from Michelangelo's creation of Adam reimagined by pop culture royalty. The music held on a sustained chord, stretching the moment into eternity. Then, as if by some telepathic signal, both performers stepped away from each other simultaneously, turned to face the audience, and took a single, humble bow. The stadium erupted in the loudest reaction of night, perhaps the loudest in Wembley's history. The applause, screams, and tears continued unabated for nearly 5 minutes, during which Michael and Madonna stood side by side, occasionally glancing at each other with expressions that mixed professional respect with a hint of continued rivalry. No words were exchanged between them on stage after the performance. None were necessary. Everything had been said in the language of music and movement. Backstage, after the show had concluded with Michael's solo encore performances, the two artists met briefly in the corridor between their dressing rooms. Away from the public eye, their interaction was different, more guarded, perhaps, but with a newfound understanding. Madonna removed one of her iconic crucifix earrings and pressed it into Michael's palm without explanation. He looked at it for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and handed her his sequin glove, the one he had worn during their duet. No photographers were present to capture this exchange, but several crew members witnessed it from a distance, later describing it as a moment of profound mutual recognition between two artists at the height of their powers. The next day, London newspapers would struggle to find adequate words to describe what had transpired at Wembley. Music critics wrote of a seismic shift in pop culture, of artistic boundaries dissolved, of a moment that transcended entertainment to become cultural history. But those who had been present knew that words on a page could never capture the electricity of that night, the alchemy that had occurred when two singular artists had challenged and elevated each other in real time before tens of thousands of witnesses. In the years that followed, both Michael and Madonna would reference that night in interviews, though neither ever fully explained how it had come about or whether it had been planned. Madonna would later wear a single sequin glove during a performance on her next tour, a subtle acknowledgement that most fans recognized immediately. Michael occasionally wore a small crucifix pin on his jacket lapel for certain performances, though he never confirmed its origin. These small gestures became part of pop music lore, discussed and analyzed by fans who understood they represented something significant about that night at Wembley. For those in attendance, the memory remained vivid decades later. Fans would gather on anniversaries of the concert, sharing their recollections, often ending their stories with the same observation: "I've never experienced anything like it before or since." Music historians would place the performance on lists of the most important live music moments of the century. The exact details of the songs performed and the choreography displayed would become subjects of intense debate among devotees, with no video recording ever surfacing to settle the discussions, adding to the mythic quality of the event. 30 years later, a small glass case in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would come to hold two objects: a single sequin glove and a silver crucifix earring, displayed side by side. The accompanying plaque would offer only the date, the venue, and a simple description: artifact from the legendary unrehearsed duet between Michael Jackson and Madonna at Wembley Stadium. For visitors who knew the story, no further explanation was necessary. For those who didn't, the enigmatic display would prompt them to ask, to learn, to understand that on one summer night in London, two artists who defined an era had momentarily set aside their differences and created something transcendent. Something that, for 72,000 fortunate witnesses, would remain etched in memory as a moment when music fulfilled its highest purpose: not merely to entertain, but to elevate the human spirit to heights previously unimagined. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By sharing these precious moments from Michael's extraordinary journey, we keep his legacy alive for generations to come. What remained most powerfully in the cultural memory was not the technical brilliance of the performance or the unexpected nature of the collaboration, but rather the raw humanity displayed by two artists often perceived as larger than life. For a brief window of time, the personas fell away, and the audience glimpsed something genuine: the joy of artistic connection, the vulnerability of true creative risk, the power of music to transcend boundaries. In a career filled with iconic moments, this unexpected duet stood as one of Michael Jackson's most revealing performances precisely because it had not been calculated or choreographed to perfection. It was a rare glimpse of spontaneous artistic creation from a man who typically controlled every aspect of his public appearance. Madonna would later acknowledge this in a rare, candid interview years after Michael's passing. "That night changed something in both of us," she reflected. "I think we both realized we had more in common than we thought. We were both control freaks, perfectionists. But for those few minutes on stage, we had to trust each other completely. Neither of us was used to that." She paused, looking away from the interviewer for a moment. "I miss that Michael, the one I met in that musical conversation at Wembley. I don't think many people got to see that side of him." For Michael, the Wembley duet represented a road briefly taken, then abandoned. A moment of artistic spontaneity that contrasted sharply with the meticulously planned performances that characterized the rest of his career. Those close to him would later reveal that he spoke of that night often, sometimes wondering aloud what might have been different had he allowed himself more such moments of unplanned creative risk. That night with Madonna, his choreographer would later recall him saying, "I felt completely free for the first time in years, just responding to the music, to another artist, without thinking about what people expected." The physical artifacts of that night, the exchanged glove and earring, took on special significance after Michael's death. Madonna appeared at his memorial service wearing the sequin glove, a gesture that brought tears to the eyes of fans who understood its significance. In her brief remarks, she made no direct reference to their Wembley performance, but spoke instead about artistic courage and the price of vulnerability in the public eye. "Michael showed us all what it means to remain an open heart in a world that often makes that impossible," she said. Those who had witnessed the Wembley duet understood she was speaking, in part, about what they had shared on that London stage. As daylight broke over London the morning after the concert, a solitary figure could be seen sitting on a bench near Wembley Stadium. It was one of the stagehands who had worked the show, still in his crew uniform, staring at the massive venue as morning light illuminated its structure. In his hands, he held a program from the previous night, thumbing through it repeatedly as if searching for evidence that what he had witnessed had actually occurred. When approached by a passing jogger who recognized his crew jacket and asked about the show, he was silent for a long moment. "I've been doing this job for 20 years, he finally said. "Rock shows, orchestras, you name it. But last night," he shook his head at a loss for words. "Last night wasn't a concert. It was something else, something I'll never forget." That stagehand's reaction encapsulated what thousands felt as they made their ways home from Wembley that night. The sense of having witnessed something that transcended entertainment, something that would remain with them for the rest of their lives. In the improbable, unrehearsed, unannounced collaboration between Michael Jackson and Madonna, they had glimpsed the purest essence of artistic expression. The moment when performance becomes truth, when music becomes communion, when celebrities become, however briefly, profoundly human in their creative vulnerability. And in that glimpse was something precious and rare, a reminder of why we turn to art in the first place. Not merely to be entertained, but to be transformed.